Hello. I'd like to first thank you for being here. I'm going to play the conversation with Adam David in just a moment, but before I do, I'd like to give you a little insight on what to expect from this fascinating conversation. I'm a Christian. However, I'm not just an ordinary Christian. I'm a Christian with a deep understanding of the spiritual, prophetic, and quantum realms and realities. Because I have this understanding on an intellectual as well as experiential level, I understand that not everything is explained clearly in the Bible. There are things in this world that the Bible just doesn't have answers for or are not explained clearly. I'm not one of those people that say, if it's not in the Bible, it's not from God. I believe that that is a very myopic and limiting worldview to have. My guest today is Adam David, and he is a modern mystic. He explains what that means, don't worry. But what I like about him, he breaks down a lot of the spiritual, quantum, and other supernatural experiences with a scientific lens, a lot which he goes into great detail on his own channel. I guarantee you will learn something new today, either from his world or from mine, but likely from both. So for someone like myself, and perhaps many of you, you're looking for answers, but you need them explained with a scientific approach, meaning there's evidence to back up some of these ideas and experiences. For example, there's a point in this video where I show Adam where some demons physically live, and I actually play a phone call recording of actual demons speaking out, having a conversation with multiple people. And it's interesting to have Adam's perspective about demons, angels, aliens, healing, and miracles. And it was nice for me to bounce back and give some of my introspective thoughts on these as well. So if the strange paranormal and supernatural life intrigues you, you will definitely get something out of this talk today. And if you do, please like the video, drop a comment below, and perhaps share with someone who loves to also go deep on esoteric topics. Enjoy the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Santiago, and today I have a very special guest on, someone way beyond his time, Adam David from Modern Mysticism YouTube channel. We're going to get into some very interesting topics, what the universe is made of, holographic fractals, angels, demons, possessions, aliens, God, healing, manifestation, spirituality from a different and scientific perspective. It may get deep, it may get complex, it may get weird. So there's a lot to get into. So let's go ahead and get into it. So Adam, welcome. Thank you very much for coming on and to share your views.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, so for people that are unaware of you and what you do, so you have a YouTube channel called Modern Mysticism. Do you consider yourself a modern mystic? And what is that? And how does that differ from maybe like ancient mysticism?
Yeah, I'd say that what I try to practice is along the lines of modern mysticism. Ancient mystics would typically do a lot of the same things I try to do, which is understand the world and then try to understand how they relate to it and operate within it. And what I'm trying to do or move forward is the idea that in the modern era, we have a bunch of scientific theories that all kind of point towards the same concepts that the ancient mystics were saying were going on all along. These Gnostic teachings, like Christian esotericism, all those different lines of thought are all sort of pointing towards the same root concepts that support like a one creator or a one being that is split into many, having different experiences.
Okay. So do you think that a lot of this comes down to like semantics, like ascension and, evolution and stuff? Maybe they're not using the word like frequency, but a lot of the same ideas are just kind of like the level of ascension and those kind of things. You think it's kind of like along the same lines? It's just different terminology and stuff that we're using today.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that through the age of reason or the Enlightenment, where we started to look at and only accept what we can measure, what we can touch, what we can see as being real. And then we got away from this idea that all the stuff they were talking about in mysticism, centuries before was nonsense. So we started moving towards this, like, what's if we can't measure it, it doesn't exist. And I think that we had to go through that so that we could discover the world from a material perspective, so we could actually bring it back to like the mystics concepts or the Gnostic concepts, and then unite the two. And then we actually do have a good foundation of like what we are, where we came from, and such. It's just they didn't have the language back then. Yeah.
So like the modern mysticism, is there like one group and they just have like different offsets, like such as like there's not just one type of, Catholic or Christian, and you know what I mean? And they just kind of have like different like offshoots of that. Is that kind of the same way that it works with that? Or is there just like one, like, I don't know, like, is there like one leader? It's like for modern mysticism. I'm unfamiliar. So just trying to figure out what that is exactly.
Sure. So I chose modern mysticism. It originally came from the other name of my channel, which is Spirit Universe. It's just to explain that like we, from the perspective of like an individual, being like a mystic is relating to like the mystical forces of the universe and understanding them and utilizing them. You could say like different lines of thought, like theosophy or anthroposophy, or even like Rosicrucianism, some stuff like that is kind of doing the same thing. There's all the other different organizations like the Golden Dawn, all this stuff. I don't know too much about those ones, but the general idea is that like there is that kernel of truth that all religions talk about, all spiritual lines of thought think about, and it's like there are so many correlations across them that there has to be some truth in there. So it's just like looking at that from that holistic perspective and removing all like the dogma and the control from like when the states like Rome would get involved with Catholicism and like push their propaganda or their intentions into the religion. It's trying to remove all of that and bring it back to like what is the core teaching here? What's the core idea? So
that's actually interesting too. Based off of kind of what you said, what is God in your point of view, or what do you think God is?
So what I would say God is, so that it gets complicated because when you start to divide this into different parts, you get to like the Father, the Mother, and all that stuff. But from my perspective, it's like the totality of the universe, or even beyond our universe, just existence. And then our universe is like divided into all these different parts that are self-similar. And like, so that total like package, then also down to like the smallest point is like this all God. So like it's almost like from my perspective that it's being subdivided or broken up into all these different parts and pieces that you could see through all of our sciences, like the electron or a magnetic field is what steers that electron. And if you think of like how there's one shape that keeps showing up, and that's like a sphere or like a torus field, as it's sometimes called in science, you start to see that like that repeating pattern across reality is really just like a container for that energy that is like the fundamental force of the universe. So from my perspective, it's the permeating force of everything that literally drives movement and sustains like existence.
I see. So you don't think that God is just like an actual being that created the universe. You think God is the universe?
Yes, I'd say that. Yeah.
Okay. Were you raised in a particular religion at all?
I was raised as a Christian. My parents kind of fell off of it when they started asking my parents for money, like I think a lot of Christians do. But like, so I got a good tour of it when I was younger. And then I've always been interested in Christianity because the teachings are great. The idea is amazing. And it's just like, in my opinion, the religion that kind of speaks to the modern era and the best. As
far as because of the path that you're currently on right now, so I'm guessing that basic or fundamental Christian or Christianity basically didn't resonate with you. Would you say that that's, or why did you necessarily kind of branch off to like Gnosticism and stuff like that?
Sure. So I guess I've always kind of seen religion or spirituality is like an evolving thing. And it feels like to me, a lot of Christianity's kind of got stuck. Just like trying to understand what the words mean as opposed to like what the words mean. I remember being very young and then thinking about the resurrection and then being like, do I believe that he came back as like a full living person? I was like, I don't think so. There's gotta be more to this. And like, so that was kind of like my breaking point. That was young. And since then I've just kind of been trying to understand, like, you can see a lot of people who get a lot out of like a spiritual understanding of the world or like a religion. And I've been like, what is that? How did they get there? Like, yeah, so it's just me trying to find that for myself. And yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, fair enough. So, I mean, at this point, it's safe to say that you don't think that Jesus died and actually raised from the dead. Is that correct?
So I think my views on that have evolved. The way it's talked about in the Bible, I think it leaves a lot to open interpretation. Currently, and I think this is my opinion, lines up with a lot of like the Rosicrucian teachings, or what Rudolf Steiner said happened with the Christ being, and how he incarnated in one we call Jesus, and how it all happened at the baptism. And like it's the way I see it is that the Christ, the Logos, came down and merged with Jesus at that time, and then for those 3 years he was moving across teaching all these different religious concepts or spiritual concepts to people, explain to them that they themselves also have a piece of God in them. And in the event when he died, I think that there was a whole range of things that happened because this incredibly powerful being went through that whole death process with Jesus at that time. So it was sort of like a merging of soul and spirit with a being that's more cosmic in origin that really like kind of upgraded humanity and the earth. So so I do believe that like he did like resurrect, but not like as a human, cells.
Okay. So that frame of thought is pretty old, right? I've heard very similar things. I mean, it's over 1,000 years old. I can't pinpoint to where that came from, but yes, I guess before we get to like into a little bit deeper or like paranormal or spiritual stuff, you do talk a lot about plasma, what drew me to your channel to begin with. So what is a simple way of explaining that, and how does it to relate to how we humans exist?
Sure. So I would say that when you look at how plasma forms out in space or in controlled environments, it'll often form what's called dust plasma or complex plasma. And that will actually form like little balls or spheroids or dust of like pieces of plasma that will then like float above the entire structure and then start to form into spheres and then create like complex structures that then start to move together. So like when you take it from that understanding and you look at like the sun, and you understand that it's got what we call solar winds or plasma flowing through the entire solar system. And then understand like the planets themselves could literally just be these dust plasmas forming into smaller and bigger spheres over time. It starts to look like every structure that's like individual starts off as like a plasma, and it's able to self-sustain itself, and then it organizes into like double helix structures like our DNA. And like there's the as above, so below. So it's like the idea that these plasma structures are able to hold on to electric charge and then continuously organize around that, I think points to like what we are, because you could look at the shape of it's called a torsion field, but the way the torsion field is like representative of how energy moves through a system. And you could expand this to the stars, the galaxies, to our individual cells, and even our DNA, and you can see like parallels across the whole thing. That's the above, as above, so below, like where that comes back.
So just to touch on that real quick. So you had mentioned that like the torsion field, basically it has a particular shape. And basically that shape is kind of consistent from what we see out in space, certain things that aren't even on Earth, obviously on Earth, but also within our own DNA or cells within us as well. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So there's definitely some consistency there. And yeah, I heard you talk about that. I know you get really deep on a lot of this stuff. So, but yeah, that's, I guess that's about as simple as of an explanation we're going to get at that. But that is very interesting. Well, you've probably heard about like a lot of the drone sightings and stuff like that took place like last year that obviously ramped up again this year. But a lot of those, they're definitely not drones. Like they have like this plasma like aura to it. There's some of them that have like a clear, like it's moving, like it's alive. And I've heard other people kind of talk about like those specific orbs are like plasma and stuff like that. Do you have any thoughts as far as like what those may be or what we're seeing there?
Sure. Yeah. So you're talking about the ones that kind of undulate, and there's like they look like balls of plasma, really. So like they undulate, and then they hold this like spherical structure mainly. So there's many lines of thought of what that could be. There's a lot of evidence that even like surrounding our planet, there are huge clouds of plasma that we call Kordylewski clouds. They sit right between the Earth and the Moon, but it's more like it's like the edges. So here's the Moon, here's the Earth. It like sits on the edges, and like it's not hard to imagine that there are like plasma structures out there that are like unbelievably intelligent just due by their size, and how they can organize themselves. So what I've heard some people say is that these could be like probes or orbs from these different plasma structures coming to try to like look into our reality, look into the Earth. I've also heard that if you want to look at like other forms of intelligent life that are more human-like, that would be a way to put something into the Earth's atmosphere and maintain its structure, and then kind of move around. So that would give you a whole range of different properties that would give examples of how these things move in the weird ways they do.
So are you saying basically that you believe that those orbs and stuff that people are seeing may be like a natural phenomenon?
It could be. It could be. So if you consider the big clouds of plasma out in space, or even here, sometimes when ball lightning pops up, yeah, those could be natural phenomenon. Just as natural as we are, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. One thing I did hear though was, which I thought was interesting, was that there was a woman, perhaps whistleblower, who knows? There's so much stuff that goes on, right? But she was talking about how the U.S. government has technology to actually manipulate plasma, and she believes that this lady, and I wish I remembered exactly what it was so I could speak more coherently about this, but basically. She was basically saying that that's the U.S. government. They're testing stuff. That's why you're not getting a straight answer about it, because they're actually testing. Yeah, basically just testing like their capabilities and stuff with like the plasma, like crafts. Basically, they have like ability to manipulate it at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So like they've definitely figured out that if you can focus even lasers on a specific area, it causes plasma to arrange itself. So I did do a video recently where it was that drone sighting that came out recently where it was flying over the ocean and got hit by a missile.
Yeah.
And then if you look there at those three, like, or at least three orbs kind of things that floating around the whole time.
Break it off, yeah.
Yeah. So I could totally see like them experimenting with like a computer that's driving these things, as maintaining a focus of three laser beams and causing it to implode and maintain that structure. That would be a great like way to do all sorts of things for the military. And I know for a fact they've been experimenting with electromagnetic weapons for decades now. And like, so they've completely sidelined most academic science just to like make it so they have the premier science on that to kind of set the rest of the world back.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check out your video on that for sure. Okay, let's just say that it's not us. What do you think that aliens or UFOs actually are, from your perspective?
So I would say that there probably are beings that are like us, that are cellular beings that have trillions of cells that make up one thing. But eventually, I would think an intelligence would become more akin to a plasma being or an energetic being, in the sense that their consciousness is more driving the show rather than responses to the environment. So I would say that non-human intelligences, for the most part, are energetic entities that are living and experiencing the world from that perspective. And then I'd say that they are still interested in us, because I think that at our core, we are essentially the same as that plasma entities, just inhabiting a cellular structure or cellular structures. So I would think that they're intelligences that are just, in a more energetic resonance.
So what do you think about the idea or theory that I guess even like the government's now basically postulating that aliens have some sort of territory like deep in the ocean, and that's why we see so many UFOs and stuff kind of come out that way. What are your thoughts about that?
I personally think that those bases down in the ocean are probably U.S. government's bases. Yeah. So, and I think that'd be the perfect cover to like say that they don't have these underwater naval bases where they're doing advanced research. Yeah. And then also to, create the idea of if they wanted to later down the line, pull a lever on, oh, we're being invaded. Now we've got to unite under a one world government. We got to take these things on, even though how could we?
Right.
Yeah. I think it's always something they just want to have as an available option.
So you basically kind of were saying that you don't think that you think the aliens are, I mean, if they are real, if they're physical, like some people have seen them and stuff like that. And I've had an experience before. I've wrote a book about it. But yeah,
I would say I've had experience with, it wasn't physical and I didn't see them with my physical eyes, but in my mind's eye while meditating, I have had an experience where it was definitely not a human being. It was human-like. So I do have experience with those kinds of things.
So when you're meditating, would you say that like the same beings and stuff that you see while you meditate are basically like the same type of beings or spirits or entities that people are seeing like on D&T trips? Would you say that that's probably about the same?
I would say that it's probably so there's different layers of reality, the way it stacks. And I'd say that like so when I was just talking about, I'd be curious about your experience too, by the way. But the experience I had was it was in my like house. So I was meditating, I had a mask on, and then about 20 feet away, I saw in my mind's eye, went to the dining room, and I saw this bluish being like a human type creature appear and then like turn and then float over to me. And then I looked I pulled my mask up and I looked and there was nothing there, but I could still see him in my mind's eye until he disappeared. So that was, in my experience, different than any other experiences I've had. In regards to what you were just saying about like in the DMT realm or whatever, those are more the spiritual beings that people talk about, I think. So like these are the angels, these are like deceased loved ones. These are like people call them elementals. Basically they're intelligences that exist like at an angle to ourselves. So that's what I think angels are pointing to, beings that are at an angle to us. And so like I think that when we get out of this mindset or our brain stops really focusing on like what is in front of it via our eyes or touching or whatever, it starts to tap into like the underlying substrates of reality or the frequencies or energies that are stacked on top of it. Because as I'm sure you know, like we see so little of the visible of the electromagnetic spectrum. There's so much around us we can't even see at all.
Yeah. So you basically believe like in multi-dimensions then. Is that correct? I mean, it's
sure.
Safe to say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dimension I think is a clumsy word, but yeah.
What would you call it?
So I guess if you look at everything as like the speed at which it's moving and like in oscillations, it's like just like how music, there's different harmonics and octaves. It'd be like we operate in one octave and then they're like at an octave that's adjacent to ours. So like, yeah, exactly. Okay.
So like, I guess while we're here, I didn't want to divert here, but since we're here, so CERN there's been so many talks about like the crazy stuff that CERN has been able to actually do, like whistleblowers from CERN basically saying like, hey, we actually have like an open channel to like whatever like dimension that is to actually talk with other entities and stuff like that. What are your thoughts about that? Or as far as like what they're doing, or even if they are tapping into someone else, like, and who do you think that even is?
Oh boy. Okay. So I haven't looked too much into it, but when you look at like what CERN is, the shape of the Hadron Collider and like how much energy they're throwing through there, I believe that they are definitely breaking dimensions or tapping into different octaves or whatever you want to call it. And that's entirely possible if they're talking to like intelligences that reside there. I think that we are constantly in contact with these different entities. It's just not at a conscious level. And then like I've heard they said that they've opened up portals and stuff. Again, that's entirely possible, because once you start to force energy to collapse in on itself and then continue to like reverberate into the space, it does create like openings, or it starts off that whole chain of allowing you to like sort of seed down into the subatomic layer of reality. So I think that's entirely possible.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what do you think is like the worst case scenario of like something that would happen like in CERN? Like, are they gonna, like, what do you think is like, besides like causing a black hole here on Earth, what else do you think would be like the worst case scenario at CERN?
I can't really think of any like worst case scenarios because like from what I can tell, the universe, or at least the Earth, is very well like protected. It's a living being that's very powerful, and it's because it's got such a powerful core. It's able to maintain itself in the face of pretty much everything. So like when I see people talk about, oh no, the sun's got a huge cosmic burst and it's headed our way, where I'm like, we have such a strong magnetic field around this planet. Like the fact that like we have been able to sustain this Earth for so long is a sign of this. And like another example is that when the different shells around the Earth do get overloaded, it just reinforces the next one. And then the shell that just got broken through starts to rebuild itself in a stronger way. They're called plasma double layers. And like they found that these structures actually encapsulate everything. So I'm not really sure like what they could really do that could cause a lot of damage. Maybe they could do a huge one that would create like an explosion, but that's about it.
What about like Ghostbusters, right? So like Ghostbusters, like at the end of Ghostbusters 1, or hell, maybe all of them, where they just, unleash the, like the pit of whatever all these spirits and stuff kind of come out of. I think that's where some people were kind of worried. It's like, oh, hell, we're gonna, they're opening like some crazy portal and CERN, and just all this stuff, crazy stuff from like biblical times is just going to kind of come out and stuff like that.
I could see something like that. I think that what would happen is you take basically creatures that are like subatomics in size and then blow them up to huge sizes. I guess that's possible. But I think another thing that gets overlooked here, and why I think physical aliens visiting here are very unlikely, unless we're talking about like the Greys, and I'll get into that, is like the way the Earth functions is that we have the Schumann harmonic resonance cascade. That is a series of frequencies that come from the Earth and go to the ionosphere and come back down. And it is so specific in how it, like the layer of frequencies, that cellular life here evolved to utilize it. And anything that's not really from here is going to have a hard time like sustaining itself within our atmosphere. So even if we did like bring stuff from the subatomic layer of reality or quantum and then brought it up to like our scale, I think it would probably quickly like lose its ability to hold on to its shape. And then, like, yeah.
So I think, because I made a video about like the inner Earth, like do aliens come from inner Earth? And I think that, and the reason mainly that I made that video is because I do think, and just kind of process too of researching for that video as well, I do think that aliens, well, yeah, I do think that they can definitely come from like the inner Earth. I don't think that all aliens do. I think that we call them aliens, but they've been here first.
Yeah, that's
for the simple fact that you see them go in and out of volcanoes, like even active volcanoes. Like there's even like videos of this stuff, from like a long time ago. I mean, they've been filming that stuff like forever, since we had cameras, them going in and out of volcanoes. Yeah. And, obviously out of the oceans and stuff like that, they're going somewhere, you know what I mean? And they're able to obviously withstand the heat and the lava and all that stuff, like in a volcano. So I think that they definitely are coming somewhere, but that kind of going to your point about that maybe they've adapted, because God knows how many years they've been there, right? So maybe they can't even live and survive up here in the atmosphere, but wherever it is down there, maybe it's perfect for them. you know, or maybe they've always lived down there. Maybe they've never, ever lived on the atmosphere. Maybe, you know, who knows? There's just different things to actually think about. But,
yeah. So I was going to say that there's a guy named Drumvalo Melchizedek. He's kind of up there in age now, but he's written several books and also taught a lot of the same stuff I'm trying to teach. He said that there are plasma entities that are living inside volcanoes, and then they'll take like quartz crystals and huge quartz crystals and shape them so they can have those as houses, and they'll actually live inside the quartz crystals. And like the more, yeah, right. And the more, and like he says that they're like a few, like a past version of ourselves that went through this whole process. It wasn't as complex as it is now, but they went through this whole process and evolved into be these like plasma consciousnesses. And like they see it as their job to sort of like shepherd us through this same process. So it's like the earth keeps going through these cycles where it'll produce images of itself that are individuated in like human bodies and animals. And then they'll get to a point where something happens or they evolve, like the intelligent species will evolve and then move into a different part of the earth, and stuff like that. And I think that's the same trajectory we're actually on. It's just, we're like in the middle of it. Because
you see them and reported even recently, like UFOs traveling around like nuclear sites and stuff like that. And those instances where the UFOs shut down the nuclear reactors and stuff like that. And all that crap's like documented, and that's been happening for like years. Yeah. But you see them like travel like around the nuclear site. So there's got to be some kind of like they're looking out for, I mean, maybe us, maybe they're just looking at their greater good, you know, since obviously they live here too, like in some formed frequency or another, right? Yeah. So maybe that they're just kind of protecting like their greater good or our greater good.
Yeah, it could be that, or it could, I think that's probably part of it. Like for instance, today, I had a box elder bug in my house, and he was flipped on his back, and I didn't kill him or anything. I put my finger out and I let him grab onto it so he could flip back over. I feel like it's the same kind of thing. They're just trying to make sure we don't destroy ourselves, or like they see we're in need and they'll try to help, but like we can't comprehend that there even a life form. So like it's yeah.
It's interesting. So I guess while we're on that specific topic, why do you think that I'm sure that obviously levels of the governments just across the world are aware of these kind of beings and stuff like that. Why would you think that the government has like a vested interest in like hiding that sort of truth? Like, what do you think it is? Like, just that the people can't, you know, actually handle the truth, or what are your actual thoughts about why there would be a cover up?
So I think it's multi-tiered. It's probably that those who are in power are usually the least likely to want to give it up. So like when you look at even going back to the 20s and 30s, when we started seeing like as Foo Fighters during World War II, that they were like aware that these were the spiritual beings that they've been talking about for forever, because they would get in their supper clubs and then they would go to weird drugs, and they'd all like try to communicate with these things, especially during the spiritualist movement back in the 1800s. So I have a feeling that the well-to-do in our society have known about these beings for quite some time, and that pretty much challenges their claim that humanity is a lost species that has like no importance to it, and it needs to be guided by those who can steer society. So it's like they're afraid, A, it's going to take away their ability to control the masses, and then B, it's going to take away their ability to continuously charge us for like energy, and C, like if they can figure out a way to weaponize this, they can circumvent the whole thing, and then they can like control the population through, you know, all sorts of weird weapons and like technologies.
So do you think that I guess, I was going to ask you, do you think that the alien or UFO disclosure is like soon? But I feel like it already happened. Like last year with David Grush kind of coming out, you know, in front of Congress, just saying, hey, we have these UFOs. Hey, we have these down crafts. We've had them for many years. We have, you know, like biologics. So we have some sort of being and stuff like that. Do you think that there will be like a more, I mean, I don't even know how much more straightforward we can be about that. What are your thoughts about that disclosure?
I think you're right. I think we're probably, without people like demanding it or it becoming like just common knowledge, I'm not sure how much further they're going to go, because there's so much liability tied up in them revealing this. Like, how do you justify having everyone's cram on airplanes for the last 50 years when you have crafts that can, go to the moon? Like, it's a real slippery slope. And then like it sets these corporations up for like the partners of these governments. It says of the government, like it sets these corporations up for extreme liability, and like they, with our campaign finance system and like them getting checks directly from these CEOs or the people who ran these programs, like I just don't see how it happens. It's going to take like a groundswell to like get this stuff out there, or just new technologies that make it seem irrelevant. They're like, oh yeah, the government had that, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of circling back to, before we kind of went down that, down that trail. So that time that you were meditating, has there been multiple times where you're meditating and you saw like another being like in the room with you, or was that just the one and only time?
So in the room with me, that was the one and only time. But there's been a couple other ones, but it wasn't the same degree. That was vivid. But other times I've had where I've gone to different layers of reality. They call it in like different lines of thought, like in theosophy or wherever it comes from. It's called Devachan or like the heaven. There's been times where I've tapped into that. I've seen what we call the astral as well, but that's usually just full of a lot of stuff that's not really coherent, or like it can seem scary because it's like all our ideas collectively as humanity, and there's a lot of things we have ideas about. So like it just gets kind of put there for a while. But I have like touched these different realms while meditating in my mind's eye.
So when you see them, is this also a presence that you can tangibly feel, or is it more just a visual construct thing that you're saying?
It was the first one was definitely a presence I could feel. That was bizarre. And that's why I just really don't know what that was. It was definitely not entirely earth human, but it was humanoid.
Was it the presence that it gave you? Was it fear, happiness, peacefulness? What would you say?
I'd say it was like familiarity.
Familiarity.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like it looked down at me like in a loving kind of like supporting way.
So when people talk about like spirit guides and stuff like that, I don't know if you believe in that, or like, people have like guardian angels and stuff like that. Yeah. Do you believe that possibly, since that did have a level of familiarity, do you think that possibly could have been one of those?
So I don't think that particular being was like a spirit guide or a guardian angel. I do believe in guardian angels and yeah. But this was different. He was like wearing clothes and like it was like a space kind of suit. I got the impression that it was like. So I also believe that we go through different lives and different stages of spiritual evolution. And I guess from the perspective of the higher self, or like even the soul, that there isn't really any time. It's just what's unfolding at that moment from the perspective of the consciousness that's experiencing it. So what I got at that time was that it was sort of a being that was related to me, or is me in a different time, just like picking up on me being in a very calm state at that moment. And it's just, it's like I was putting out a sort of a broadcast that was able to be picked up. It's kind of the feeling I got.
Why would you think that it would visit you there at that time? Were you going through something specific where you were looking for like an answer, help, guidance? Were you feeling down? Were you feeling happy at that time? Why do you think it picked that specific spot for you in your life?
Sure. So it was after I really started to understand that, like, oh, we are like energetic beings. We are plasma. We're quantum is what I was thinking of back then. It's like we are quantum. There's proof of it. And I started to really get into it, and I started to really get into meditation. And then it was around that time. So And I've heard that this is a typical path of like spiritual development, is that at the beginning you'll have like amazing experiences that kind of show you what the universe is, what you are. And it's all to try to like wake you up and like shake you from this material living. And I think that was part of my like awakening process, in the sense that it showed me, look, there are other beings out there. There are other intelligences that are like just like us, living lives. So
kind of just telling you you're maybe on the right path, or
exactly, yeah.
Okay. So what are ghosts in your opinion, from your mindset and your studies?
So I think so there's been a lot of accounts of people seeing people when they die. They release what's called like a what's it called? It's called like a death mist. I think that's what it's called. And basically it's like a formless pattern that sort of like comes out of the body at time of death. And then it looks humanoid, and then it kind of dissipates. I think that when people die a confusing death, or like a death before their time in like an accident or a suicide or like some sort of cruel act of murder, like the consciousness that's behind that energetic pattern doesn't really have a chance to recognize that their experience as a physical earth-based being is like over. So they never really move into the different octaves that are adjacent to our frequency domain. So they kind of stay here and then kind of move around and act as if they are still alive, but in a very confused manner. But then there are also all sorts of spirits that, what we call spirits, but I think are more akin to like plasma beings that are just operating within the earth alongside of us.
Yeah. So there's like, so I have kind of an interesting story. I was actually making a video about this. So like in the neighborhood that I live like in an old town, old small town in Arizona. Town was built, I don't know, I think like somewhere in the 1900s or something. My neighbor that lives down the street, she was on the phone one day and she was talking to her son. Her son is like a medium. Her son's a medium. And so she was just talking to him like FaceTime, right? So she was just on the phone with him FaceTime. And then he was asking, her son was asking her, says, "Hey, who's that?" Like, she's like, I don't recognize that guy. Who is that? And then my neighbor, we'll just call her Karen, okay, for now. And the name's actually fitting. So we'll just call her Karen. So Karen says, what guy? It's just, we'll just say Tom. Tom's her husband. We'll just say it's Tom. It's just Tom. It's just me and Tom. And then she's like, no, there's definitely someone else there with you. And so they both are just kind of looking around like, no, I don't see anyone. He says, yeah, he's actually pointing to the window. And so Karen and Tom, they both go to the window. And then she says, oh, hold on, he's talking. And she's what he's saying is that he claims to be the guy. He's a doctor. It's his doctor. I forgot his name now.
Okay.
But it's a doctor that actually founded this town where I'm at. And he was basically talking to him, just saying this. But the reason he's pointing out the window was because he was telling him, he says, this used to be all mine. Like, this was all mine. This was all mine. And he founded the town. So yeah, he did have a large portion of the town since he was a doctor, at that time. He did have quite a bit of properties out here where I'm at. So he was saying that. And then, so Karen was just like, what? It's like, yeah, this is what he's saying. And then, but I don't see anybody. It's like, and then, so her son's like, wait, he's going to the refrigerator. He's going to the refrigerator. It's like, okay. And so they all watch the refrigerator, and sure enough, the refrigerator door goes open.
Oh, wow.
So the refrigerator door opens, and then she starts to believe. I mean, she knows her son's a medium, but she actually, I don't know if it was just a thing of disbelief, and he was just trying to prove that, okay, I actually am here. Hey, you guys can't see me, so let me just kind of show you. So he's on FaceTime and they're all watching this stuff. So the refrigerator, opens and closes and stuff like that. And then the guy, he ends up saying, the doctor ends up saying like all this stuff. And apparently that doctor, I guess he had told her son that he walks through like the neighborhood and stuff like that. And he basically just kind of just checks on it and stuff like that. So he visits like everyone in this house. I mean, in this neighborhood and stuff like that. And, it's just kind of something that he does. But I mean, he died many years ago. So basically, I guess being kind of, reluctant to believe everything, Tom was like, okay, well, when they got off the phone and stuff, they looked up the name that the doctor gave them. And sure enough, it was one of the founders of this town that I'm at. And all that checked out. The guy, they'd never heard of that guy before. So I was like, wow, that's freaking crazy. So I was like, yeah, but he wasn't mad. He wasn't angry. He was just more so of just like, I'm here. Hey, this is my town. Like basically just like he's not going anywhere. So yeah, I mean, it is pretty interesting that I don't know how he died. Now I wish I remembered. I'll have to ask her his name and stuff to see exactly how he died or why he's kind of stuck in that limbo. But I guess while we're here, what are your thoughts about like purgatory? Or do you think that ghosts are in that realm of purgatory? Or what are your overall thoughts about that?
I haven't really formed a total opinion on that yet. But from what I can understand is that when we die and we lose like this coherent pattern of like each cell has a spark of energy that is our own, that it keeps dividing up, and each new cell has that same spark in its core, and when we die in them, that all that loses its ability to be held by the body, it leaves. And then if that form doesn't stay coherent, it starts to propagate and spread throughout the entire universe and also the earth. So I think that when that happens, your consciousness becomes less about like a single point and becomes more about like all of experience and how you are in relationship to like whatever else is around you as you kind of spread out. So I think that like that's kind of the general idea of purgatory. And then when you look at like different religions and then theosophy, they talk about how there's a stage where we have to go through like all the things we did in our life and like reconcile all the energetic disturbances that we've left behind, our karma, our sins, and then we get to a point where we're pure again so that we can, if we choose to, as a consciousness, reincarnate again to learn whatever lessons we want to learn or whatever. So I think purgatory is kind of that process of moving back into being able to get back into being like a pure being so that you can either, assist other living things or even incarnate again.
Yeah. So that's a kind of interesting thing because Christians as a whole don't really believe in, and I am Christian, by the way. So I am Christian. I obviously think outside the box. And by the way, for the people that are watching, hey, I'm a Christian. Why do you have a modern mystic on? It's like, well, I think that this is a great way to kind of get to know what the other person is thinking or what they're about. And the only way to do that is to actually have some sort of civil discourse with each other. And that's kind of what we're doing now, just a level of understanding. But anyways, just wanted to throw that out there, just learn from each other. But yeah, so Christians don't necessarily believe in purgatory, but just in my logic as like ghosts, like, I don't know necessarily if that's some form of it, like just me just thinking like logically, like there's obviously ghosts, there's obviously spirits that aren't angels or demons. There's obviously some spirits that have from people that have actually lived here on the earth that are not one of those other categories, right? You have an interesting take about what angels and demons actually are. So would you mind kind of going into that?
Sure. So, first I want to say, like, I think those words are very charged. So like demons and like are always the things we got to avoid. Angels are always really helpful. But then even like they always talk about like fallen angels. And then those are basically the demons. And like, from my perspective, like they're spiritual entities that are more high and hold on to, and like more high and represent like the purity of God or whatever you want to call that like pure loving force. And then there are entities that are not so, I guess, evolved would be the way to say it, that we call evil or demons, where they take in energy and like from the environment or for people or ideas, and they'll hold on to it. And then kind of, instead of sharing it back in a harmonious way or a way that would be beneficial to us, they'll hold on to it, kind of twist it, and then give us back something that benefits them as opposed to ourselves. So these demonic entities aren't necessarily like the worst things in the world. They're just not evolved to the point where they're ready to help other life forms that aren't themselves.
So when you see like, and I mean, my book is literally based off of like the paranormal stuff that I've actually gone through or seen like personally. So
cool.
What's your take on stuff like where, you know, someone, we'll just take this example from, you know, a childhood friend that I know, you know, anytime that she slept on her bed, but she had like an arm or leg just kind of laying off her bed, you know, when she sleeps, she would wake up and have like black scratches like on her legs or arms or which, you know, whatever body part and stuff that just kind of left off, you know, the constant harassment of them trying to like choke them and stuff like that when they're trying to sleep. Like, I don't know, like, I think that there's definitely like a clear, you know, like delineation between like a unevolved spirit to like someone who they have a clear agenda to disrupt or do something evil, like bad.
Yeah. So I think that's also part of it. So there's different concepts. I like to go back to Rudolf Steiner's anthroposophy. And he talks about there's Ahriman and then there's Lucifer. And Lucifer is like also, you know, a fallen angel. And then Ahriman is what is basically become like the physical version of Satan today. So there's Ahriman who wants to keep us in matter and keep us in a frame of mind that all there is what we can touch, taste, smell, hear. And then Lucifer wants to get us to the point where we're understanding that no, we're more than that. We're beings of stars. We're energy is like pure and great. But both have their extremes. So on the end of Lucifer, you can get really prideful and you can be like, oh yeah, I'm so great. I'm the star. I'm a sun. And then Ahriman wants you to be, oh no, I'm just a worthless human being that's got to eat and drink and everything looks so bad and humanity can't ever get anywhere. And like the key is to exist between the two, which is what Jesus Christ was trying to say. Is you need to exist in between those two realms and be like a human being that's in the balance. So from my perspective, that there definitely are beings that want to mess with us and make us feel sad or like get depressed or like just feed off of our negative emotions. And like I could definitely see them if your consciousness was open to it at some degree, because we got the whole subconscious mind that does more than we could even probably imagine. I could imagine like if your conscious mind is kind of like cueing to your subconscious mind that I'm open to these demonic attacks, it does kind of like open the door for things like that to happen. And it really does all come down to like conscious agreement, I think, because you can't just, these beings they have to have our permission to interact with our physical bodies. And that's kind of where like embracing religion or Christianity comes into play. And that's why like people who are invoking the Christ typically do repel these demonic forces. It's saying I'm getting in alignment. I'm not in alignment with you. I'm in alignment with my higher self and God and the energetic forces that uplift the universe, not drag us down.
Yeah. So it's interesting too that you had just pointed that out, that if something was actually attacking you, you could call upon the power of Christ to actually help you. Yep. I noticed that you didn't say, you didn't call upon the power of Buddha. You know what I'm saying? So there's, I think that, so Christianity just, is obviously attacked for so many reasons. It's the most mocked and ridiculed, religion just across the world. You can see it every single, video and music award, whatever, big brands and stuff like that. They try to mock Jesus, musicians and stuff, whatever it is. They're not mocking Buddha. They're not mocking, the Indian gods and stuff like that, Native American gods. It's not that. It's always Jesus.
Yeah.
It's always Jesus. So with that same thought, that like, even when like people have like UFO abduction stories, like alien abduction stories, if most of the time that if they're talking about religion, where the being itself is talking about religion to the person that, or the victim, we'll just say the victim, it's normally about like Jesus, like, hey, we created Jesus, we put Jesus on this earth, and this kind of stuff. They're not saying, hey, we created, Ra or whoever else, what I'm saying? They're just saying, they're specifically always saying Jesus. So when you look at that and just logically, it's like, okay, why is everything pointing to Jesus? There must be some sort of truth there, either that they're trying to, hide. Like, why would they go into so much effort just to even point that out? The person's not even caring about who Jesus is at that moment, or maybe doesn't even know who that is. And yet these beings are telling them about that. It's like, hey, by the way, Jesus is someone we brought here. Jesus is an alien, he's just like us, and this kind of thing. So it's just really interesting so I think that there is like, for sure, like that God, like Jesus side, we'll just say that, that side, the good side basically. And there clearly is like a bad side. Obviously, if there's a good side, there definitely just by default has to be like a bad side. But I would like to share something with you real quick. And this is one of the things I wanted to kind of share with you. So I just wanted to, let me hit pause real quick. So just give you some sort of background about me. So I come from like this prophetic camp, like, and basically, just to give you an idea, if you're not familiar. So the prophetic camp is basically like in church, even outside of church, you're able to give someone like words of knowledge, words of wisdom, that kind of thing. Like you can tell them something that's going on in their life right now. You can tell them about something that's going to happen. You can tell them how to reverse a current situation that they're in. And these is just talking to someone that you don't even know. Like it's me walking up to, I'm literally in the store, like, at a grocery store, and the person behind me, God gives me a word for him, says, hey, your son's going to court, on Friday. It says, I'm going to tell you what you can do to, to basically to avert that, or to basically have him have like a good sentence, or for the judge to favor him. You know what I mean? And those kind of things. And that's essentially what that is. It's just kind of bringing good news for the most part, maybe uncovering like bad news or bad things that have actually happened. It's like, oh, you had a death. There was a death. I guess you can kind of tie it to, I guess the correlate to that, maybe like the parallel sort of would be like a psychic medium or someone that you have to pay, and those kind of things. But I come from this camp, from the Christian side, of like this gentleman that you see on the screen here. His name is Pastor E.J. Newton. But I want to show you this clip specifically because of kind of what we're talking about with like the angels and demons and stuff like that. As I play this, I just kind of want you to see how this is playing out. He's going to talk about another prophet here. I'm not going to give him airtime here, but I just wanted to kind of show this to you. And then there's something else. I'm going to play the phone recording for what he's talking about, so where you can actually hear like a spiritual entity like break through this frequency or dimension that we're in and have a normal conversation with us. Basically, he's saying that he's a prophet. Just to kind of give you a little bit of backstory about him, is he's already a well-known prophet. And he has a buddy that he teamed up with who's also a very, very successful, well-known prophet, both from Africa initially. But what he's saying is that he already has powers, but his friend is telling him, hey, I can give you more. I know how to get more powers. And this is what this is.
The encounter, it didn't need to do anything in my heart. I just wanted to talk about it. So I began to search for these encounters, and I wanted more encounters. And so I hear there's a guy they could call angels. I'm like, sign me up. I wanted it. I said, I'll take you. I went there twice. The first time I went there, I went with him and his son and a couple other people. And we drove far to the village in Ghana. I went to Ghana. We had someone had invited him to come preach and me to come be a part of this opening of a church. And so that was the opportunity to go. So we went there, we met the guy. The guy he's like, this is my friend. What's your name, EJ? Everything looked normal. He said he'll pray for us. So he starts saying these words. Physically, not in a vision. It wasn't at night, it was in the day, it was in the afternoon. We're outside, we were not in the shrine, we were outside. There was a door, there was a room in front of us. It was like in Africa, they have, in Ghana, in the villages, they have these houses where the corridors, the alleys are in the open. You see what I'm saying? There's no roof on it, but then the room has a roof. So we're standing in one of those alleys and I can hear, how are you, my friend? How are you, my friend? I was like, whoa. He said, that's the angels. Can you hear them? I said, yes, I can hear them. I looked at everybody. Y'all can hear? You guys can hear them? I said, yes, we can hear. What's your name? My name is EJ. Oh, I hear you're starting.
This is a voice talking to you.
Yeah. So we're all there. Something.
But you didn't see the person.
No, but I could hear it. It's like, I hear you're starting to do some good things. Huh? I said, yes. So we're praying for you. Come back. We'll help you. Come back. He said, come back. I said, okay. Thank you. I said, thank you. It said, what did I say? Forgot what I said, but I said, thank you. He said, okay. Come back. I said, yes. And then we left. Came back to America, back to church. Everything was normal. In my head, we just encountered angels. Mm-hmm. But I was like, why did they have that voice? Mm-hmm. He said, it's high pitched because when they break into this realm, it does something with I forgot how I explained that, but essentially when they break in here, it sounds different because of the frequencies or whatever nonsense. And I didn't feel the presence of God. And I'm not a person that's moved by feelings, but I was not convicted by the Spirit of God. Mm-hmm. But I was okay with it. You see what I'm saying? I was like, okay, this is deep. And it's like when angels appear in the Bible.
Did you really believe that there were angels?
At some point I did. Yeah, when they appear in the Bible, it's 6 wings and this and cover their faces, and it's strange. And they usually say, do not be afraid. So it's a fearful thing. And this is how, because I asked the question to my friend, this is how he rationalized it to me. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? And I was like, who?
Your friend.
Yes.
Real quick, because I need clarity. We need clarity.
He's a prophet.
Your friend is a prophet.
Yeah, very renowned prophet in America.
Okay. All right.
Of African descent.
Okay. And so he's convincing you that you're hearing angels in this place.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys come back to America. Do you guys go back?
The second time, yeah.
You go back?
Yeah. So the second time I go back, he has me go back so they can pray for me what they pray for him. It's a special prayer.
Okay, he said
you gotta pray in person.
You said they prayed for him a prayer.
Special prayer, yeah.
What was the prayer supposed to do?
The prayer was supposed to unlock new levels.
Does your prophet friend, operate in new levels?
Like, you ask me this as now? That I know all of this? Or
no, at that time, was he moving in a way that had you convinced that there was something special about him?
Absolutely. He starts praying. Everyone is falling around, deliverance. And it wasn't nothing that wasn't already happening in my life. And that's why I was a little confused, because I was like, what else do we need? Because he was already prophesying to people, which I found out later. We'll talk about that later. He was already doing these things, these prayers, people will manifest. I was like, what else do you need? You have a following already online. But it grew exponentially after this. He told me after his first trip. So he was like, there is more. He's like, if God is going to use you at that level, you need to be fortified. So this the X factor was the fortification. I don't know what fortification is, but I see you're killing it right now. Everybody's talking about you. You are the guy. Sign me up. What is this fortification? What is this new level? Let's go figure it out. Let's take me there. Sign me up. So and the first time, because it wasn't, I didn't see no blood, no sacrifice. It just was normal. Got you. He said, this guy is the modern day Moses. Thank you, Jesus. He said, it's a modern day Moses. So I'm like, dang, Moses was talking about angels. It's a perversion of the scripture, you know. And
I mean, essentially, the way that this works, just so you have a better understanding of what this is I know it's so choppy maybe to even understand what's happening. That his friend invited him to Ghana, and so Ghana, there's a we'll call him a pastor that's out there, right, in Africa, and he has the ability to call upon angels, and that's what that is. So, and that's where he takes him down there. And at first he can hear them, like audibly hear them, and they're angels. So he's just like, wow, just surprised. The thing is, everyone else around him can see them. But the only reason he can't see them yet, and that's why he has to go back a second time, is because he hasn't memorized the Psalms. So these angels give him Psalms from the Bible to actually, to remember. And basically next time he comes, he has to memorize them. He can't just read it. It has to be actually in memory. And basically what that will do is that will unlock him to where he can physically see them like the others do. Because everyone else there can see them because they've all been unlocked, because they've gone through that initiation process before. At first you can just hear them, but you can't actually see them. So let me go ahead and I'm going to play you a conversation where there's a few, but I got this one. The guy from Africa, you'll hear his accent is very, very strong, so it may be hard to understand, but you're going to hear these high-pitched voices in the background. The prophet is asking him about certain thing. He needs certain power. He needs an extra level, like elevation, right? And is whatever it is he's trying to do. So the guy from Ghana is there with the angels, and he's telling them, he's giving them a prophetic instruction on what to do. So this is what this is.
The speedy recovery.
Amen.
He said, drink the water. Drink some of your water right now.
Okay.
Drink it now.
Okay, I will go get
Are
it
you
now.
close to the water?
I will go. It's downstairs. I'm going to go and get it. Yes.
He said he's going to get the water. He's going.
Okay, I'll go and do it now. Amen.
He said, bye-bye.
Those are the angels.
It's okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
He said, anything you need, call them. Call
Okay.
them. King Japa said, anything you need, call me. Are you listening to him now?
Yes.
That's why he said, King Japa said, he want to give you the gold, the ring, and the chain. The gold, all is gold, pure gold. Then they will be with you always.
Yes.
So that's the problem. That's what I'm going to call you. Now you are going to call them for yourself, and you be the leader. Have you heard it?
Yes. Yes.
So see, the angels there are basically their names start with King. So the main one there, like the main voice that you heard, that's King Jaffa. There's a bunch of others, and I have their names. I just don't want to say them because I'm not trying to cause any kind of attention or whatever. But that's what they are, and it's just crazy. Like that guy could see them, everyone else could see them, and you can clearly hear them. But just and I'm going to show you also here. This is also interesting, and then I'm going to get your take on it. I'm going to show you where they live. This is, remember how the Pastor Jay was talking about how they live in this house.
Yeah,
and he was there at the house, and then you hear them talk. So I'm going to show you the house that they actually live in.
I want people to see, here is the Dwarf Kingdom. And this thing show that only God, this one in my culture called Jinyame, only God, nobody. And this is the power. This is the power. You see, this one is the power. What do you understand? This one, I cannot bring you the food inside. If you read here, he say Dwarf's Kingdom. Dwarf's Kingdom. Here is the Dwarf's Kingdom. Kingdom. If you enter inside, here is the Dwarf Kingdom, and this one is only God, only God, only God. This resemble only God. This one is look, and this one it says the powers. That's the act of the powers. Okofi.
Kyokofi. So basically, what those are is basically they aren't angels. Even though, see, this is the crazy part, and this is kind of what I was getting to earlier, that they are mimicking what people are doing in the Bible. These dwarf spirits from Africa, they're actually a collection of people that lived there in that house. They were gathered by witches there in Africa. And what they do is they're assigned to a certain family. That guy that was talking, I know who he is. I'm just not going to give him any airtime, but that's basically, he's the guy that he owns them. And he basically owns these spirits. And that guy, Pastor G, was like, well, it's kind of weird that you would own angels. Like, we don't own angels. But basically, the guy owns these dwarf spirits. And what happens is whenever he dies, then his son inherits the dwarf spirits. But basically, the dwarf spirits do whatever that this guy wants. But the thing is that they'll do anything for you, even though they're mocking the Bible, saying, hey, read me these Psalms, will unlock you dimensions. All this stuff happens. It's not that it doesn't happen. This stuff happens. Whatever it is that they're going to do, like, happens. I mean, the other prophet, that guy really, like, he accelerated, like, after, kind of dealing with them, like, for sure. They're manipulating, like, scripture and stuff. But as the thing about it is, they're not taking, like, they're not saying, hey, read me a passage from, Islam. You know what I'm saying? It's always Christianity.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to me that happens. And there's this tree, I call it the tree of the dead, but basically that's where they had the pastor go back and to recite those Psalms. Here, I'll show you. Actually, I have this tree.
You see, yay! See, you see the tree. You see, I'm going to use my power to control this tree, to control the powers of Kofi. I will use my power to let them bring the bell.
So what he's saying, what he's saying is the powers of Kyokofi basically comes from some old tale. But all of this stuff and the dwarf spirits, they come from something called the 7 Books of Moses. Have you heard of that?
Vaguely, but I'm not too familiar with it.
Okay. So this is where all of this stems from. What happened was that they had Pastor EJ come here and recite the Psalms. And he was kind of, once he got closer to the tree, he saw that there was a pentagram on the ground. And he was reciting it. So he's like freaking out. He's like, what is this? Like, is this? And then that's what he was like, he told the guy, says, hey, this is juju. Like, and they says, no, that's not juju. This one's good. This one's good. This one's good. This is not juju. And he says, this is juju. He's basically, there's a pentagram on the floor and you're having me do like this stuff. And he's like, no, this one's good. So it turns out it was juju. So that's the long story short about that. But it's just interesting that, these spirits and stuff that we do talk about, the good and bad obviously have a way of, crossing into like our frequency or our dimension, whatever it is that you want to call it. And they live in their own house. I mean, these are spirits that are living there. Yeah. But just kind of wanted to see, if you had any thoughts or any insight on any of that I shared.
Yeah. So I, at least from the statue you showed with the fist at that symbol on top, mm-hmm. That looks like it would have some sort of energetic component on it at the very least. And then it's interesting that you brought up the 7 Books of Moses, because I know that there are some, I think they call themselves like mystical rabbis or esoteric rabbi. They can actually bring what looks like plasma beings or spirits from reciting different passages from the Torah, and like it's like a summoning basically. And I think that a lot of these, so it's entirely possible that like his ancestors bound those spirits in some way to their bloodline or to like the inhabitants of that land, and then they're like earth spirits that are like timeless and that are tied to that particular region and family. So like, I think that's all entirely possible. And then the pentagram thing, that's interesting as well. I'd like to get more information on like how it's set up and everything, but yeah.
Yeah, because that's true. Do you think that symbols and stuff like that, like a pentagram, just any types of symbols, like even like the one that he had like in front of their house, do you think that certain symbols, like even if you draw it, has some sort of like power or inherent power? Or is it more so just a thought, you know what, I drew the pentagram because I believe that it's going to give me the powers of darkness or whatever else, then it is. But if I just drew a pentagram or whatever other weird symbol and I didn't give it any power, any thought like that, it would have no effect at all. Just what are your thoughts about just using symbolism and stuff like that in this world?
I think that when we use symbols, it really does depend on like how we're utilizing them. So like if you just drew a pentagram with no intention behind it, I don't think it's going to really like be problematic. But if you did like a pentagram and then you like use some sort of special like mixture or even like a combination of plants or even one plant, and that's probably why it's by that tree too. You can actually start to like manipulate the energetic forces in a way that they do have an easier time like penetrating into our domain of reality. Because when you look at stuff like sacred geometry or like the platonic solids, and then you start to like break them down into their different layers and stuff, like the 5-pointed star arises, the 6-pointed star tetrahedron arises. You start seeing like why these shapes have been so prevalent over so long of a time, because these are like core patterns that like exist at the base of reality, and that our subconscious mind, or like at our core, we recognize these symbols as like being patterns that manifest things. The 5-pointed star in particular is like great at taking energy and then actually just like pushing it into a new environment or like into our reality. So that's actually really interesting. As for like the 6-pointed star, the Star of David, is great for containing energy and holding on to it to do like stuff with, or like have existence in and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I definitely do think that like things, I don't know, too much as far as like the symbolism and stuff, but I know that like even in the Bible, when they had in the book of Acts, where they had like the prayer cloths, basically, like there was a handkerchief that was given to a woman and she was healed, and it was just a handkerchief, which a lot of charismatic churches do that practice. And I've actually personally have done that. I've done that practice for, I'll still do it. I'll still do it. Like if someone's sick or they have like a stomach problem or whatever else, I'll pray over like a bottle of water and I'll give it to them. So go ahead, just drink this, and then just something like that, just something that like that. But it could be anything too. I had a friend that was like in a coma and stuff, and I, prayed over some cloth, and I gave it to him, and just there like on the bed. Although I think the nurses came in and got rid of it, but whatever. It's just the thought that that's definitely like a practice that we do think. So, oh, this is crazy too. So like, okay, so I haven't talked really about this part or my background from on the channel. I'm going to create another channel. It's called Intuition Squared. And it's basically where I could talk more about like the spiritual stuff or, just kind of the other healing nature. But one of the things name. that I learned healing or like early on was basically the way of kind of implanting like healing, like kind of what I was saying with like the prayer cloths, but like using like a tangible object. We actually worked with coins. Like, for example, like the test that I've done and it's worked, I would essentially, we'll just say I prayed over like a penny, right? And I gave it to someone who had either scoliosis or had some kind of hip problem. So if they had some kind of hip problem, something physically like wrong with their back, like there's something wrong, I can give them a penny or have them stand on a penny or whatever else, and then their body and back will just line up. And then that's without me having to pray for them, having to touch them or whatever. Everything is basically like implanted into that coin. But it can literally be like anything. You know what I mean? And proof of this too was like, and I had talked about this. No, this is in my book, but I'll just share this. So when I was learning this stuff early on, this, whatever it is that we are, our energy, I guess, transfers to like liquids. It can transfer to food and stuff. So what I would use to do just to test this, to see how it works, if you have just a regular water, it tastes normal, right? But if you actually, we'll just say that I'll use the word run energy through like a water or a beverage that has like fizz or, you know, any kind of carbonation, it'll taste different. It'll taste different. So I used to do this like on dates just to screw around, just to see if I could do it. And, you know, like my date will order a drink, she'll order a drink, like soda, whatever else. And then what I'll do is I'm just talking to her, but I'm just going to casually have my hands on her drink. So I'm talking to her and then I'm basically, you know, running energy on the drink for like a couple minutes. And then she drinks it and I know it's going to taste bad. And sure enough, because what this does is this process of this is it removes the fizz and you have a flat soda. So she drinks it, you know, she drinks the soda. It's like, man, the soda's flat. We'll get something else. I say, okay, sure enough. So, hey, you know, waitress, we get someone in, we get a different drink and stuff. But I've done that numerous times and it's always the same thing. So this transfer and stuff that we actually are, like we are energy. I know Christians hate to use that terminology and stuff. I mean, it is what it is. We obviously have some sort of field, energetic field within us that we can transfer out to other objects and stuff like that. But yeah, anyways, I was just kind of sharing that with you.
Yeah, just to add to that, there's a guy I follow, not so much anymore, but I used to, his name's Dan Winter, and he talks about how different materials can absorb that energy a lot easier. So like your example of the pennies when they were copper is a really great medium for moving energy or holding on to it. Water is amazing at holding on to energy, and you can imprint water with feelings, thoughts, all of that. And like, it's a great medium to like bless. That's why holy water is a thing. So like you could definitely imprint water with like healing intentions and healing energy, and like people will feel it. And I've witnessed what you're talking about too. If you actually like let energy, let water get more of a positive charge, it starts to taste sweeter.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you obviously believe that healing miracles exist. How do you think that they're done? Like from your point of view, I know you're kind of from a esoteric or just kind of a scientific like point of view. How do you think that these are actually done? Do you think it's just us? It's something that's happening in us? Is it a divine entity that's assisting? Or what are your actual thoughts on how someone's actually healed?
I think that a lot of our healing is really, it's like helping the self realize how to heal itself. And then like use your example of the penny. Like you can have like a jump starter on like a car, but really what you're doing is you're encouraging the body to recognize itself as like a healed entity and to encourage it to start to heal itself. In the end, it's really just encouraging the body to have its cells heal themselves. And then there are all sorts of ways you can encourage that. There's a bunch of new science that's coming up that's like you could broadcast the frequency of a body part into that part that needs to be healed, and then it encourages the cells to take back on the structure that it found harmonious to begin with. And then it's like it's all the same thing. It's just encouraging yourself to heal yourself. So
do you think that there's any sort of divine intervention between like healing? Like maybe it's just me on my own. You know, maybe I have some sort of ailment, and I'm praying, you know, and then I'm miraculously healed. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Do you think there's any sort of, or is there ever some sort of divine intervention, or what do you think?
So I think it comes down to like what you consider to be divine intervention. So like I think everything that is like alive is pretty much divine. So it's like it's levels of like how divine is this. So I think when you pray, you're asking angels, or at least the spirits that help the earth move energy to go to that person and help them reinvigorate their life force, their ailment, or to help them navigate a situation that's potentially not beneficial for them. Like I'm praying you get that job or whatever. Like it's asking for the intelligences that exist outside of us to help that process happen.
Have you, since you're pretty, well, I mean, well versed in a lot of this stuff. I mean, you know, like you know, like a lot about this stuff. Have you ever tried to heal anyone?
I have, yeah. And I've seen some amazing things. I'll just tell a story real quick. I have a neighbor. He is a bit of a drinker. And he was home alone. His wife had went out of town. And he went out and did some really silly stuff. And he ended up getting attacked by some drug dealers in the town because he wouldn't shut up about what they were doing. So they hit him in the head with a baseball bat. And then he was not sober. So he came back home. And the next morning he's like got like fluid leaking out of the back of his head, and he's like not doing well. So he's like, hey, I really used some like water or some food. So I took him, I got him some water, some food, and then brought him back home. And then he told me, and I was like, this would be terrible if he died like on my watch. Like, and I'm like, please don't let anything happen to him. Please let Keith be okay. And like, he told me that later that day, he got a knock on the door from a police officer, and the police officer had like a basket of food and water. And he said, hey, I'm just here with your care package. He's like, oh, thank you. And then he took the care package, he drank it and everything, and he felt like he started getting better. And then he told me that like he appreciated me calling the cops to have them come check on him. I didn't call the cops or anything. So like, this is just one example of like how this has happened. Like there's been also times where like I've had a family member that gets like sick, I've prayed, and then they get better. But there are also times where it hasn't worked as well. But those are very rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you're praying for someone to actually get better, who are you praying to, or what are you praying for specifically?
I will typically pray to like angels. I sometimes will invoke what I call the mother of all creation, which is like it's basically God. It's I don't like separating it into like father, mother kind of thing, but I like it's just the force that moves reality. If there's one being that's aware of the whole thing, that's what I'm praying to. It kind of guides everything. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, so basically, like Christianity, or you know, we don't have like a monopoly on healing, right, or miracles and stuff like that. Because like literally every religion has had them. Like basically every religion has like demons, and most of them, from what I'm aware of, there's some sort of exorcism that actually takes place in those too. So it's not just necessarily just one religion that actually has these, and people can actually heal. Crazy stuff, crazy stuff, dude. I was going to show you this picture actually. There was this lady that was prayed for at church, and she had like a bunch of rods in her back from like the surgery and stuff, and she got prayed for. And when she woke up in the morning, because I did have a picture of this too, it sucks. I couldn't find it. I tried to find it, but she woke up in the morning, and her bed, she basically had a bunch of metal pieces like in her bed, and she gathered them all up together out of her bed, and just like, you know, rods, nuts, bolts, screws and stuff. And then her back is completely healed. So, I mean, she was prayed for technically that the night before. And then that night she fell asleep. And when she woke up, then she had the healing of her back. But, you know, and those kind of things. And she did actually take like the rods and stuff to the doctors or the surgeon, whoever it was that actually did that. And was just like, hey, I had this, you know, my bed. I woke up, and of course the surgeon had no explanation for why that was there or why that happened.
Yeah,
but
that's incredible.
Yeah, there's definitely some amazing stuff. Okay, so let me ask you this. I think part of your live I was on the other day, you were talking about, is it Darryl Anka? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Okay, and then he channels Bashar. What are your thoughts about that, or what do you think Bashar actually is?
All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Have fun. I will see you later. Bye, dear. Bye-bye. Spirit will say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right, thank you. First and foremost, we thank each and every one of you individually, and again, all of you together collectively for the co-creation of this interaction and the allowance of this transmission this day of your time.
So if when we were talking about that other, when I had that experience where a being visited me in my, when I was meditating, I think it's his equivalent of like him in a different like existence, or like him later in his evolutionary journey of his soul. And I think he's in communication with it, whether because like he's got an easy connection in this lifetime, or if it's just like they resonate with him in that way. I think he's getting information from equivalent of his higher self, or his higher self, his subconscious mind to a degree, but mainly like him outside of being in a human body.
So, why would you think that some people have these kind of experiences, like to have that? Let's just say that it was like his higher self came to visit him, or maybe it's him from the future. Obviously, I don't think the way that I don't know too much about him. I just know when I see the way that it looks, to me, it looks like straight up demon possession, but it's just the way that everything happens. And obviously his voice changes and how he talks and stuff. You know what I mean? It could be very good actor as well. That I don't know. I just haven't looked that much into it or cared to be honest. Why do you think that some people actually do have that? Let's just say it is his higher self, that some people have that and have these other kind of mystical or paranormal experiences when many other people don't. What do you think that's kind of attracting them to that?
Sure. So I think everyone can do this, I think, to some degrees, but I think that it's easier for some people, and it mainly comes down to like astrology, or like how you like what your higher self or soul wanted to experience in this lifetime. So they say that you go through all these different experiences until you've cleaned up all your karma, or you're sin free, and then you no longer have to come back as a human being and clean up the mess you made in a previous life. And I think along that path are various lives that we'll have that are more connected to spirit or spirituality or our higher selves or God or angels, so that they are reference points for the next lives or the ones that are to come. And then I also think that time isn't really like a straight line. I think it's more like a coordinate on a map system. Like you're in 2025, as we call it, but really you're on Earth when everything is in this configuration where all this energy is at this certain state. And then like from the perspective of a being that exists outside of that, you can kind of just move around. You could just change the coordinate. And I think that from like a soul's perspective, I think that's how it's kind of viewed.
Yeah. So like what I was telling before is like, well, I come from like that prophetic schools and stuff like that, or that camp and stuff. So the way we look at it too is that the time and the future isn't set in stone. Like it's not set in stone. Like for a normal person, maybe like, or, kind of aimlessly kind of going through the world, it can be, but obviously just kind of dependent on your decisions and stuff that you make. However, let's just say like the court situation that I brought up earlier, like, hey, your son or whoever, brother's going to court. If you want him to, the judge to favor him and him to get off, then you can basically pray, or I can go ahead and give you a word and it'll be done, this kind of thing. However, if that person had not interacted with me, that their brother or whoever would have probably gone to prison, just because a person that has some sort of authority, like in the spirit, does have a way or a means of basically kind of changing certain outcomes. I have a video on my YouTube channel called, I think it's Spiritual Warfare 301 or something like that. But it basically just talks about different ranks in the spirit and how that kind of works, like in a spirit, or like from the way that I actually see it, you know what I mean? And, or at least the way that I've been able to kind of operate. But that's kind of what we see too. Like, we don't think it's necessarily linear. Like, as far as what we do, we think that we can for sure change like the outcomes of certain things. If someone was gonna die, the right person shows up, they pray for them, and that person will live. Unfortunately, that's just kind of life. If you don't have someone like around you that has that, that spiritual rank, or that let's just say that touch, or that anointing, that person very well could die, but yeah, I think that's just the way that the world is. At least from my experience, that's definitely what I believe.
Yeah. And I don't really like saying like these things, but like, I feel like some people just have to go through these horrible lessons, and it's like, I don't know how to say, like, it's other than that's unfortunate, but like, I feel like there's so much more at play than what we're aware of, that in the long run adds up to something beautiful.
Yeah, I just have a couple more questions here for you. So what are your thoughts about remote viewing and astral traveling, or any of these that you've actually done or want to share any experiences about?
Sure. So I'm not like a professional remote viewer or anything, but there have been times where I have never done like give me a card where I can't like see what's on it and I'll tell you what's on it or anything. But I have, like, during meditation, gotten images of places that are decently far away, and like it's like I'm standing there. Or astral travel is kind of like moving your consciousness around a different field that we are always in. I think that what we're like, remote viewing is definitely possible because the consciousness we have is definitely outside of just our heads. In fact, in different lines of like mystical thinking, it's like a cloud of energy that's around this area is like our mind, and it's not just contained here. It can move off, and when we get our attention away from like what we're seeing, what we're touching, what we're tasting, etc., it can start to move around and go to different spots, including different frequency domains or octaves, which is what I think the astral is. It definitely is possible. I also think like things like telepathy and psychic things like ESP and telekinesis, I think that also has a level of like the same concepts. It's moving around our energetic field in ways that interact with things outside of ourselves.
Yeah, there's definitely like, have you ever been to Sedona, Arizona?
Yeah, multiple times.
Oh, you have? Okay,
yeah.
Okay. Did you go for like enlightenment purposes or anything like that? Or is it just more so just a visit?
It's a little bit of both, but at my core, it's to go for like enlightenment experiences, sit on the vortexes and feel.
Yeah, the vortexes. Yeah, so I was going to say too, because like people are born with or higher, we'll just say psychic abilities than others, that's inherent. The way, like from the Christian point of view, or like at least from, my camp, we would look at it as, well, that person was basically called by God, and they need someone else basically to tell them that they were called by God, unless they had a visitation from like God or an angel or something like at a young age to kind of let them know, like, hey, this is why you have this gift. Now you're supposed to use it for good, that kind of thing. If they don't have those experiences, then it's basically like someone that they would have to come in contact with, like in the future, would basically tell them like, hey, you have these gifts. We see you're doing it this way and for this purpose, but God is actually giving you that gift for a purpose and for a reason. And, you should, basically seek out the Lord for this, to kind of fine tune that. Okay. So when I was younger and I went to Sedona, and well, I always knew I had something special in me since I was a kid. Like I said, I wrote a book about it. If you guys want to see it, carlossantiago.com. All right. But anyway, so there was an experience that I had in Sedona where I was with a girlfriend at the time and her family, and we were playing cards like in this hotel, and just very casually, I don't even think I was playing, but whatever card game that they were playing, I was able to call the card before it even drew. But it wasn't just once, it wasn't just twice, it wasn't 3 or 4 times. It was at least 5 or more times, like in a row, where it's like, okay. This is getting crazy. Like how am I able to call the exact, card? That kind of experience has only happened in Sedona. So I do absolutely believe that, that is a highly spiritual place for a reason. I do not think that that's fake about any of that stuff, saying the vortexes are fake. No, I absolutely believe all that stuff is true. Yeah. Just because I've personally have had experiences there where my abilities are heightened there and in those specific spots. So there's no denying that. And then when I come back home, then I'm regular, Carlos again. But, it's just kind of, I just kind of wanted to mention that.
I've noticed that kind of fades. It's like they come back from Sedona and then it kind of fades off back to normal. I was sitting on the Boynton Canyon vortex for probably about 45 minutes by myself, which is amazing because it's usually pretty busy. And that was one of those times where my inner vision went beyond me because I had my eyes closed and I saw like the entire valley and it was incredible.
Yeah, that's actually amazing. All right. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you is, what do you think that dreams are? Just from like your knowledge and your insight and stuff, what do you think that? And then also adding to that, like, what are your thoughts about seeing prophetic visions or seeing people that passed away in your dreams? Or what do you think that humans use dreams for?
So I think that a large portion of it is sort of like planning our day or giving us like insights into probably symbolically a lot of the time, like what's going to happen coming in the coming days or the next day or a week down the line. And then when you see like loved ones there, so when the body goes to sleep and we're not like actively giving our organs and different parts of our body like attention to do all these things and they go into like their rest mode, it frees up the energy in our body to start to move around and then go into these different levels of reality. And then when we're dreaming, it's much easier to go to, like what we call heaven or Devachan or whatever you want to call it, that realm that's like right above. And like, that's where you can start to interact with loved ones and they're like how they looked and stuff like that. And I think that it's just like our physical brains then like being able to get an image of what we're actually experiencing at like a soul level.
Let me ask you about this. So like, are you familiar with the telepathy tapes?
I'm familiar with them. I have not listened to them though.
Okay, that's fine. But you understand like the comments or the premise of the nonverbal autistic kids have special or psychic abilities. A lot of the common themes that they've seen with these nonverbals is that they have the ability to go in their loved ones' dreams.
Okay.
And and to kind of see what's happening there, which is really interesting too, because like I said, for my camp, some of the prophets and stuff are able also to do the same, not necessarily go in them actively at that time. Although I do think that that's probably possible if these other people are doing it, but they can recall what that person dreamt. Like, like some people say, hey, Adam, 2 weeks ago, you dreamt this, this, and this. You'd be like, oh yeah, that did. How did you know? And that's kind of like the same thing. So I think that whatever this is, like kind of what you mentioned before, that this time, whatever this is, it's not linear. There's stuff that's happening like all around us. And it's just kind of tapping into that specific field and drawing that down. Yeah. And the dreams are definitely just because we're in that state that we're obviously in, that people are able to kind of move around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which I think is very similar to, or there's some overlap with astral projection as well. Because I know that this I was actually gonna make a video about this. I don't know why I haven't. I probably will. But basically, there's this prophetess lady. Well, she's pretty well known now. But basically, she was. So anytime that I can't say like every single time, but a lot of times, if someone is kind of living pretty worldly, or maybe in like kind of maybe on the satanic side, just kind of doing stuff there, and are using powers like on that side, and then you convert to Christianity, or just you want to do something for God, that there's usually like some sort of spiritual warfare that takes place, right? And some of that stuff was happening to this lady, and that's actually more common than not, unfortunately. Some people don't want to become Christians because they've heard horror stories about the the backlash. Actually, I have a friend. Hers lasted years. It's normally not that long, but it can be, and it's constant torment. Demons are visiting you like every single night. Like it's just drama. Like,
so what do you mean by demons visiting? Or like,
well, like kind of like what I was saying before, like people would, or like beings, I guess, would like kind of attack you, try to like choke you, or just like appear. Like when you're laying down, you're looking up, and you'll see like shadow figures like in your room, move crap around, knock stuff off your, off your dressers and stuff like that. Constant like attacks. You decided to, give your life to God, basically. And that's good. I'm glad that you actually asked that question. But there's this lady that I know, and this isn't uncommon, but just to give you an example of like how there's definitely some sort of correlation or overlap between the dream realm. But she was going through one of these attacks. It was at night, and in her block, she has like a friend that lives pretty close by. So what was happening, like in the spirit, she's not physically like awake. She's like basically sleeping, and she's being attacked by these spirits. These spirits are like holding her down, and they're trying to like attack her and take her into they're trying to take her to somewhere. And there's multiple like shadow figures that are doing this. And she's basically praying out and asking for help. While she's praying, she's asking, Jesus for help, and, help from like, guardian angels and stuff like that. So her neighbor, who lives like a couple of blocks down, wakes up in the middle of the night. Because she gets some sort of insight about that. She starts praying for her friend, and the lady who's going through this stuff, she can actually see her friend in her dream, or what's happening there to her, in the spirit realm, basically.
Yeah.
Like her friend basically comes in, she says some words, she's, doing spiritual warfare and stuff like that. And then the shadow figures leave. And then, of course, the ladies at the end, she's like, I'm free, like, I'm free, thank you and stuff like that. And in the morning, she called her friend to have the discussion about it. It's like, hey, did you, were you praying for me, last night and whatever? And yeah, sure enough, yes. And she said, yeah, I had some kind of weird, something just popped in my mind that I needed to pray for you. And sure enough, but yeah, it was something that she can visibly see. So, that would, I don't know necessarily if that constitutes like astral traveling or whatever else. However, I heard other Christians talk about that too. Like Christians will do some astral travel warfare. It's frowned upon, like you shouldn't do it, but it's not uncommon or unheard of for people to do that. But
that's a great story. Yeah, that sounds, I believe that 100%. It's like when you get into that mode of praying, I like to think of it as like you get really implosive. So like you're really radiating your energy through your core is like, it's constantly like bringing energy in, and it's like the sun. And you kind of like then start to permeate different realms, and then can start to do these mystical things. And that's beautiful. The imagery you gave with that dream, her popping into her dream. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really crazy. All right. So I know we've been off for a while, but let me go ahead and get you out of here on this one. So I guess, what is your goal with like your studies? Like, what is it like you're looking to do? And I've seen you teach like these, pretty big teaching seminars online and stuff like that. So just kind of curious what your long-term goal is, or, kind of what your mission is.
Sure. Yeah. So as I get it, my mission in this life is to try to help those of us that are more spiritually minded, scientifically minded, but are also like aware that there is something more, to find that on-ramp so that they can begin to understand that like life is much more than just atoms and cells. And like that there is a real spiritual component, an unseen realm that guides us and helps us find our destinations. And like I found that when you can really explain this in the way that energy moves and how it arranges itself and how it actually itself is intelligent, you can really start to build that on-ramp pretty well. And I'm taking like what really got me to this point, because I have a background in computer science. And I was like always trying to find all the things I've been interested in, religion and spirituality and unseen realms. I was always trying to find that, how it, like, where is it in real life? And then when I found it, I was like, oh, I really got to share this with people. I've really got to help those of us that are struggling, find a way to relate it to their everyday lives and bring it home personally.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that you have like a very like analytical mind, and you talk about, certain things. And I think this is just kind of my NLP training, but how you talk about specifically how, those sort of things. And just like the numbers, and you're very analytical. And I do see this, so the science part about what you do is actually what intrigues me, because there is dude, you posted so much stuff like with scientific backing about like probably a lot of this stuff that we've even talked about today. Like, I'm sure you can kind of come back with, some scientific, correlate to to what this is, or, how this is actually happening, like in the physical realm and stuff like that, which I think is fascinating, which, drew me to your channel to begin with. But yeah, man, it's been real. I do appreciate you, your time coming on.
Sure. Thank you.
And everyone, I will definitely link, his channel and stuff in the description and everything else below. But yeah, was there anything else that you wanted to share, or something maybe I just didn't know to ask?
I feel I should push or talk about my workshop I have coming up next month.
Sure.
It kind of talks about basically where we are as a species, how you can start to look at this, and then it starts to explain like what a lot of these different realms are, what like spirituality is, what angels are, demons, and like try to understand how they work within like the physical realm. Then I would end up talking about how this is going to include like our technologies that are coming, how we're going to like change how we heal using technology and medical science, and then also finish up with where we're going to end up going as a species. In there, I'm also going to talk about the Rosicrucian concept of how Christ entered the earth realm, and like what it means for us going forward along with that.
Yeah, that's interesting for sure. Well, yeah, definitely. So I appreciate that. And guys, if you got any sort of value or enjoyed this video, please like or comment. I'm just getting out of YouTube jail. I've been shadow banned for years. And so anything will definitely help. So anytime that you like or comment on a video, it tells YouTube that you got something out of it. So all you're doing is basically helping us kind of get the word out. And so Adam, thank you so much. And
thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.